Well, hello there, and welcome to another episode of Mr. K is Wrong, where I debunk the Facebook memes of somebody I used to know back in my high school days who is a right wing doofus. So, this week, I'm going to debunk a particularly dumb meme. It features a bird asking someone who is sort of stereotypically LGBT, how come you never read books at nursing homes, or to the homeless, or to the sick and needy? Why is it only the little kids? Oh no, as if that's actually true. But debunking the meme actually really is not that difficult because it's so badly done, so poorly argued, and just with simplistic logic that even the average doofus or dullard should be able to, see through the stupidity here. But not everyone does. So, the claim that LGBT people only read to little kids is, of course, false and misleading. LGBT people help in all kinds of ways. That those people volunteer across the board at hospitals, shelters, food banks, crisis centers, and yes, nursing homes. In fact, some of them have, grandparents, friends, relatives in nursing homes and in other areas like these that I mentioned that might need help, and not just reading, they might help in some other ways too. And just because right wing media doesn't show it doesn't mean it doesn't happen. You can find LGBT led community aid groups doing exactly these things in cities across the country. So the very basic premise of this meme is bullcrap, and anybody with a brain should be able to understand that. But there's a lot of people out there who are apparently lacking in the brains department. And, the drag story hours are about visibility and inclusion. Events like Drag Queen Story Hour are meant to make libraries and schools feel welcoming to all kids, especially those with LGBT family members or who may feel different themselves. They're about self expression, literacy, and acceptance. Nothing more sinister than that. And do I really even have to say this? But plenty of molester types are heterosexual. I know that might come as a bit of a shock, but it's actually true. You know, that's a very well known and well established fact. What was Jeffrey Epstein, for example, one of Trump's old buddies? And, I just did a podcast episode where I talked about him. And the last episode of this podcast was about that to a large degree. And I could go through a list of the right wingers who have been involved in sex offenses, and including with underaged people. But I don't think I should need to do that, right? So reading to kids isn't weird; it's common, and authors, firefighters, athletes, soldiers, and even politicians read to children. But when an LGBT person does it, some suddenly act like it's suspicious. You know, it's a it's a fact that says more about the critics' biases than about the readers themselves. And of course, if there is somebody who is abusive toward a child, then I think it's a very practical thing to weed them out. But to say that everyone who is not conventionally heterosexual is an abuser, well, that's just bigotry. That's fear based bigotry. And helping the vulnerable isn't a zero sum game. Supporting kids doesn't mean ignoring the elderly or the homeless. Many LGBT organizations do both. Groups like the LGBTQ plus Elder Associates, Trans Lifeline, and SAGE exist because LGBT people care about their communities at every age. So the bottom line is that this meme isn't asking an honest question, it's pushing a smear, and a really stupid one. It points it paints LGBT volunteers as predatory by ignoring reality and pretending to care about the sick and needy just to attack a marginalized group. So don't fall for stupid memes like this. Understand that there are abusers from all different walks of life and abused people from all walks of life. It's it's fundamentally dishonest to say that all people from this group or that are necessarily abusive. That's whether we're talking about orientation or physical appearance or what have you. And like I said, there is an open question about a lot of people in power, like how much they abuse people and how much they get away with, and the smearing of you know the underclass and marginalized groups is a beautiful distraction tactic for these ugly people at the top, the millionaires and the billionaires, you know, like the deprivation of US aid right now that is apparently already killing people in large numbers, because it was a starvation prevention program. But if you smear these groups that are not rich and that are not particularly powerful, when it comes to the system, the government, well, it's a distraction. It's very convenient for those at the top who want to hoard all of the resources and who may have eugenics like beliefs. So they believe in starving, these foreign countries of resources and food. So this is also happening while Netanyahu is intentionally starving Palestinians, and anybody who's trying to provide aid is being mocked in not just right wing media, but so called liberal media is sometimes getting on board with that, and making it seem that, if you're against Netanyahu, you must be pro Hamas and you must be, against some of these terrorist attacks against some Jewish people that have been happening in the United States. But here's a fun little fact: you can oppose terrorism and genocide. They're not mutually exclusive. So you could easily oppose any sort of terrorist attack against Jewish people or Jewish organizations, and simultaneously say, maybe we shouldn't be bombing and trying to starve to death everyone in Gaza. So how about that? That's a weird fact that I guess some people just don't understand. It doesn't go on one ear and out the other because most people don't even hear that point of view. They're maybe I shouldn't say most people, but most people who are inundated with corporate media, right wing media, whatever you want to call it, normal mainstream American media. You know, so they want to have simplified narratives that are actually similar to this one that was posted on Mr. K's wall. So Mr. K continues being stupid and horrible, and I've yet to see a post on his Facebook wall that is at all redeeming in any way, shape, or form. And you know what? As something of a surprise, I I will do an episode on something like that if I see it. That's like a bonus episode sort of thing that could hypothetically happen if he ever stops being horrible and stupid. So, I mean, be on the lookout for that. It could theoretically happen as a special episode. Um, but anyway, I do want to mention that, of course, I was on hiatus for a few weeks. For 1 week, I was actually out of town. I was visiting, some family members. And another week, the week after that, I just kind of forgot about doing an episode of this, to be honest. But in positive news, I did see that there was one day where the views actually increased, or the listens increased for this podcast. I'm used to saying views because I've been an entertainment writer, and you scramble to see how many people viewed your articles when you're writing, and this is obviously a little different. I'm looking for people who listen and whatnot. I suppose you can still view my content if it's on YouTube, although there's not much to see because it's audio only. But technically, those are videos anyway. But I'm getting sidetracked. The point is, I'm back. I'll probably do another episode next week, and you know, hopefully, life is finding you well, and hopefully you'll tune into next week's episode. I don't know yet what it'll be about. I'm going to look at his wall when the time comes, and I'll see if he provides anything good or if it's all just going to be rotten again.